This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Braintree Payments. Mobile app development can be complex, but integrating your payments no longer has to be. With Braintree, your business can accept nearly every type of payment from any device with just one integration. Learn more at braintreepayments.com/whatthetech. And by Stay Roasted, the ultimate fresh roasted coffee subscription. Get your first bag of coffee for free. You only pay the shipping when you visit stayroasted.com/GFQ. That's stayroasted.com/GFQ.
What the tech?
Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarin. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thorod. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Less pretty good than usual.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the States. Happy Thanksgiving. If you are in Canada, you already had your Thanksgiving, and everywhere else, I don't know what to say to you. Thursday, we're going to be getting pretty fat. We're going to be overeating, and over drinking, and feeling terrible on Friday for Black Friday. It's a tradition here in the States, right? Is that how it works with Thanksgiving? You overeat and you drink too much and you feel miserable and you say, I'm starting my diet in January? Yep, that's how it works. We do have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, the big story here, the x86 emulation on ARM, which has become when I read it, I saw Mary Jo Foley posted this, and it's gotten a lot of, since she posted, what was it, 2 days ago or yesterday?
I think it was yesterday.
Yesterday, okay. Yeah, it would have been yesterday. Yesterday was Monday.
Yeah.
When she posted this, I didn't think I would get so many emails telling me, you have to ask Paul about this.
Right.
So, and also it's on Thorot.com. If you go to Thorot.com, you can see the article there. I want to talk about this plus a whole lot more. But before we do that, let's talk about our new sponsor, and that's Stay Roasted. I'm a huge coffee drinker. Paul's a huge coffee drinker. I was just talking to Paul. Paul got, I'll bring this up, but it's interesting. With Stay Roasted, so it's a subscription service.
Yep.
For very high quality coffee. Stay Roasted delivers 100% specialty grade coffee beans, hand selected to your taste, and it's delivered fresh. So you know this thing isn't sitting there in a warehouse somewhere and they just grab it. These things are, it's actually amazing how they work. So you go to stayroasted.com/GFQ. You get your first bag of coffee for free. You only pay the shipping when you go to stayroasted.com/GFQ, and you select what kind of coffee you want, what kind of beans you want. Do you want a light roast? And you can select how many bags you want to be delivered however often you want. It's actually amazing. And, you know, I ordered my first set. I got the first set, and I'm almost out of coffee. I'm probably I have another day. I'm getting my coffee tomorrow, so it's exactly perfect. I get 3 bags of coffee per month. It's exactly perfect for me. How many bags I'm getting. So here's a great thing. They pick from the top roasters in the country. They have dozens of America's top roasters for coffee, and you just pick whichever one you want. You go through what kind of roast, and they send you one of the best ones that they have. It's amazing, actually. Stay Roasted plans start at only 60 cents per brewed cup, and there's no commitment. Go to stayroasted.com/GFQ. Get your first bag of coffee for free. You only pay the shipping, and it's 15% off any additional bag. Paul, you gave the 2 bags to Mark, right?
I did.
You sent it over to your son, and he did not know what to do with it because they're actually beans and they're not grinded.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he knew what to do with it. He just didn't have the grinder, so
yeah.
We then sent him a grinder. So.
Yeah. Stayroasted.com/GFQ. It's also a great gift for the holidays. You could give somebody a gift card. You can buy them a package at stayroasted.com/GFQ. Paul, let's talk about this. This is actually a big story, and this kind of ties into something that we've been talking about for a long time now. You know, I think it was last week we were still talking about how Intel really dropped the ball. Actually, I wasn't talking to you about it because you didn't do the show last week. I was talking to Brad about this on how, you know, this idea of a Surface phone kind of went out the window when Intel said that they're holding back on their mobile development. They've encountered a whole lot of problems. You know, it's the same story that they've been telling for a while, where these things can't be fast and they can't be cool, and it's using up battery life, and they're having nothing but trouble with it. So they've kind of held back on this right now. And that kind of killed this fantasy world that we live in where we just have one device and we plug it in and here are all my apps, including x86.
Right.
Now there is a report, Mary Jo Foley, I believe, broke the news.
Yes,
Right.
you did.
About Microsoft working on an x86 emulation for ARM versions of Windows 10.
Right.
Oh, this is big.
It is big, actually. I mean, assuming, it comes together, that it works, that the performance is there, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of caveats to this, but yeah, it's a lot of potential. I mean, the one thing I got to caution people about, aside from just the fact that this could not be real, right? I mean, it may not be happening, or there may be something they're working on that, they decide later is not feasible. It only solves 50% of the problem for the platform, right?
Yeah.
And so if you think about Windows phones out in the world as phones, the app problem on the phone is still there, right? This will do nothing to solve that problem. We're not going to run iTunes on a little phone screen and try to hit the little user interface widgets with our fingers. That's not going to work. And so bringing desktop applications like x86 desktop applications to ARM, it doesn't solve the phone problem. But it does solve the other part of the problem. And Microsoft is trying to kind of reorient Windows Phone as a hybrid platform that can work both as a phone and then as a computer when it's docked or when you wirelessly connect it to a bigger display. And in that case, the ability to run desktop applications is kind of a big deal, because today, when you do that on Windows Phone using that continuum feature, there are certain universal Windows platform apps that run fine full screen. They look pretty good. There's even a couple of games. I highlighted a few of those last week. But those apps don't really solve the problem for a lot of people. The selection and quality and the functionality of universal Windows platform apps is not up to snuff so far with what we've seen on the desktop. And you don't see things like full versions of the Office apps. You don't see Photoshop, of course. You don't see Google Chrome. You don't see iTunes and so forth. And so this would solve that, the 50% of the problem, the ability to use a Windows Phone as a kind of a hybrid PC device.
I mean, this is a feature of Continuum, obviously, right? This is
right.
what we've been talking about, where this is a key part that's missing, where if you are that much of an enthusiast where you want this one device and you want to just connect it to a monitor and use that and run around with it, you're going to want to run maybe things like Photoshop eventually.
Well, yeah.
It's a possibility, yeah.
Yes, oh, sure, right. And, today HP is marketing their Elite X3 as this kind of device, right? And because x86 app compatibility is not a thing, in the platform, they have to go through a remote desktop solution, right? They support Citrix. They support their own solution called Workspace. And basically, obviously, you have to be connected to the internet. The performance is going to vary kind of wildly depending on, which data center you're hitting and where you are in the world. If you're in the UK, for example, you don't want to go to a US data center. You want to go to one that's nearby you.
And by the way, when I bring up Photoshop, I'm saying for the future. I'm saying for the long term. I'm saying later on that once these chips get better and faster and things kind of evolve, this is kind of the future that we're headed to.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of a business solution first. I mean, the more I think about it, I don't really believe there are many individuals who want to carry around a device that has a little computer inside of it, and then they can dock it somewhere and it turns into a real PC. I really don't think that's a big use case right now, especially with Windows Phone, because Windows Phone just is not the phone that people want. They don't want to be out in the world with a Windows Phone. Yeah. For businesses, the value prop is a little different because Windows Phone, it's a Windows device. It's managed like every other Windows device. And so they buy these things in volume. They buy a service plan. They buy perhaps like a plan for the back-end data center type stuff if they don't have that infrastructure themselves. It's something they can work into their, the scheme they already have for, purchasing and deploying and maintaining PCs today. And so something like that over the long term could conceivably be even cheaper than giving them an iPhone, giving them a PC, giving them a tablet or whatever they're doing today. It's possible this kind of thing makes sense in those situations. So, we'll see.
Yeah. So this is my question. So by Microsoft working on this, right? Are they talking software emulation? Because Qualcomm, I believe, is working on hardware emulation within the chipset for, I guess, the next generation of Snapdragon processors. So are we talking maybe them working together? Are we talking Microsoft working on this alone?
It's not clear. I mean, and that was one of the things I thought about, when you see the headline, Microsoft working to do this thing. I mean, Microsoft by itself could only do a kind of a basic, software emulation type solution. And that type of thing is never going to have the performance that, people would expect, or that they would need.
Yeah, you need hardware emulation.
Yeah, it has to work in the hardware as well. So that brings into play a company like Qualcomm or whatever. ARM-based company, almost certainly Qualcomm. And I think it looks like the chipset that's going to do that is going to be something called the Snapdragon 835, if I'm not mistaken. Not coincidentally, which is kind of interesting, or maybe coincidentally, it's going to be released in the second half of 2017, which is exactly the time frame that Mary Jo pegged for this version of Windows that would also support this capability. And so, you never know.
I mean, it's crazy. It's a 10 nanometer chip. That Snapdragon 835.
Yep.
So with hardware emulation, right? Let's take Microsoft out of this, and if with the Snapdragon 835, what other instances would this work in? Where would they benefit from doing hardware emulation if they are not running Windows on it? I'm trying to think of another circumstance
where would Qualcomm?
Yeah, like where's the benefit of this other than running x86?
Yeah, I don't know that there is any benefit. I mean, unless you want to open up your devices to, by the way, I guess now that I'm thinking through it, I never really thought past Windows. I suppose there could be some benefits on Android as well, right? I mean, you could open up, it's kind of a reverse. Maybe if Chrome OS and Android are in fact being combined, having that thing be on this platform might make plenty of sense as well, because you can benefit from the infrastructure that's built into Chrome for things like printing and more of the desktop-oriented tasks, connecting peripherals. I know there's basic support for all that stuff in Android, but it probably would benefit that, what's it called, Andromeda platform as well.
I'm trying to think the best use case for this. I'm trying to understand performance. Obviously, there are hurdles when you're trying to run something as legacy as x86 and running it on some platform it's not really intended to run on.
I think the way we have to view this is through the notion of backwards compatibility, that it's not meant to be something where these two things run side by side and they're equal partners. The mobile platform, whatever it is, if it's Windows 10 Mobile or Android, is still the primary platform. But we have this need for backwards compatibility. And so it's not going to, we're not going to run games on this thing, right? We're not going to run Windows games. Photoshop may never actually work correctly or, to the performance that someone would expect. But it's going to give you the basics, the ability to run something occasionally that you may need locally, right? I could also I've kind of wondered why this kind of thing hasn't happened. If you think about an ARM-based handset of whatever kind, plug it into a dock, which itself has the x86 chip into it, and is basically sort of the PC, but what you're using the phone for is its storage, essentially.
Yeah.
It's a way to make that stuff more portable. It may simply provide a way to create these kind of hybrid systems that we just don't really have today, or that are only half realized.
See, I think that's the fascinating thing here on the evolution. I mean, this goes far beyond just a phone, right? I mean, if we are able to run hardware emulation and it gets to a certain point, I mean, I see Windows running. I mean, we've had Windows on ARM, right? We've had Windows RT, but it was kind of half-assed. It wasn't.
It was probably released too early, right?
Yeah.
And I think I understand why they did it, but I think by making it look like Windows, they set expectations for the users which were not realized. I think a lot of people bought those things, went to the internet, went to google.com/Chrome and were confused that they couldn't. It's Windows. That
was the exact discussion. It's so funny because I was looking something up for a friend because they have an RT tablet still, RT Surface.
Sure.
And he goes, "What do I do with this?" And I just went back because I wanted to see our overall opinion when this thing got released. What was it, 2011? Right?
2012, yeah.
2012, yeah. And we had said the same exact thing where This is going to bring such confusion when you go to Skype.com to download Skype.
Yeah,
because you're running Office, right? Office is there.
I think if given another year, they might have matured that kind of Metro side of the fence, and they could have said, "This is the UI," right? If that thing never presented the Windows desktop, if the Office 2013 apps, which they had at the time that they had kind of tailored for the ARM chipset, had not looked exactly like the desktop apps that we have on x86. If they had kind of changed the UI a little bit, I think they could have gotten away with it. Right?
Yeah.
But they were so aggressive, and it was funny. When you think, it's funny to think back on this, but they actually released the ARM version of Surface first. And I think they just disappointed a lot of people.
I feel like the people that were using the laptop version wanted nothing like the tablet version, right? The Surface version, let's say. They wanted nothing to do with desktop, but they were kind of forced into this desktop, still kind of UI. Yeah. And the people on desktop were forced into this Metro UI that they wanted nothing to do with. It was so backwards when you think about that. But, I mean, if we were talking about the future of this, right? I'm going to bring something up, and I heard you mention it. We were talking about this. Not on this show, but with something like this, right? With a possible Microsoft working with ARM again to run x86, does that concept, that crazy rumor that the Surface 5 will have an ARM version?
The Surface Profile.
The Surface Profile. Yeah, does that?
No, it's too. No. It's way too soon. And no, I mean it doesn't make any sense. The Surface Phone, though, right? This rejuvenates rumors of a Surface Phone.
It's back.
Right? I mean, it never really left. I mean, people have been kind of clinging to this for a few years now. But, if they can pull this off, and by the way, I can't stress this enough. I have a very low degree of belief that this will work, that this will ship, that it will work well when it does, if it does ship, that it will solve everyone's needs, that it will be...
You're talking about the x86 emulation or a Surface Phone?
The whole thing. Okay. Yeah, I don't doubt, I guess, that they're working on it, right? I know Mary Jo's got great sources and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen. Yeah. And because it only solves half of the problem too, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a game changer in any way, right? Because it doesn't do anything to fix the primary problem with this platform, which is that there are no apps on the mobile side.
Still.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I get a little rejuvenated when I hear about you read that and you're like, oh my God, before you start really thinking about it.
So, that kind of brings us into a whole different discussion where, the platform, there's no apps. There's absolutely nothing. And even when there is an app, it's still very slow to deploy it. I mean, think about how long it took Instagram to get on there. Think about Snapchat. Think about how long it took Snapchat to get on there. So it's a
Snap. I don't think Snapchat is on.
I believe that there's a beta. There was a beta. I don't know if the beta is now live.
Okay. I don't know about that, but and there's a bigger problem too. A lot of the apps that were put out on that system have been stranded, and then are taken away. And so it's not a good situation. And we're talking about a thing that at the very earliest is going to happen a year from now. Yeah. The platform is only going to implode further.
But isn't this a Band-Aid on? Isn't this a very Microsoft way of supporting old platforms on new platforms? And I'm all for it. I think that this could open something up for legacy software. But is x86 the future of Windows? Is it still the future of it?
There's a group of people out there that doesn't want to hear that the PC is declining, that it's dying, and this isn't something that happens overnight. So I think the one thing that we can all take solace in is the fact that the PC is not going anywhere anytime soon. But it is declining. It is the past. There is no major app development occurring on the UWP side.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a major new application since probably Google Chrome, and that's obviously an x86 app. This is no longer new information, but 3-4 years ago, the two biggest apps on Windows were Chrome and iTunes, which are very much focused on getting people off of Microsoft. Right, both of them are platforms of themselves. The rest of the top 10 at that time were apps that made Windows 8 suck less, right? Which is ridiculous. And so we're not talking about a vibrant app platform, but what we are talking about is applications that people use every single day to get real work done. And I look at my own tray and I see all of them. I see the Office applications. I see Photoshop. I see Google Chrome, right? I don't see iTunes.
And those are not UWP apps, I bet.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
and most of it, well, Office, is available in UWP, but it's a shadow of the full desktop experience. And those other apps are never going to happen. So, not looking at it from a Microsoft perspective, it's fair to say that the personal computing industry is moving on without it. Microsoft can try to be part of it if they want, but the future is not Windows, right? And so Windows sticks around. Don't get me wrong; it's still a big deal. It's a huge ongoing concern, but these devices are more important. And so in some ways, it's this might be a step to some future where we're in fact the underlying platform is Android, but now Android has the ability to run the occasional Windows desktop app. That platform would be a lot more viable.
Oh, that's interesting.
Windows 10 Mobile.
Interesting. Oh, what a crazy world that would be.
Just to be clear,
I know, but if they're running the Snapdragon 835 with emulation, within x86 emulation within, yeah, you're right. How someone could put it into developer mode and emulate a Windows application.
This could be literally a platform. I mean, it could become a platform feature. I mean, look,
I mean, why? But why? I guess it's going to be for legacy software.
Well, I mean, why do businesses today? Why don't businesses upgrade to new versions of Windows and new versions of Office more quickly? A lot of it has to do with backwards compatibility, either of documents or of applications and so forth. And so, new application development is very unusual. Porting an application to a new platform is very unusual. They like to stick with what they have, right? There are so many ways to kind of get around that, and one of them would be, emulating that software. Like if you want to, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if you wanted to move from the PC to the Mac, you might have bought a solution like Virtual PC on your Power PC-based Mac, and you ran the, then most recent version of Office because the version of Office that was on the Mac was terrible, or maybe you already owned a software license for Adobe Photoshop on the PC and you didn't want to not have that, or whatever. I don't even know what applications people would have run back then, but those things existed for a reason, and it wasn't because people loved Windows. It was because they had investments in all these Windows applications. Yeah, and that will always be the case. And so, it's possible we could see that again on Android in the future. But again, it's speculation.
I mean, it's amazing actually, right? If you think about it, possibly running x86 applications on a Chromebook, running Windows apps on ARM. What's next?
It is, but think about
iMessage on Android. Oh yeah, they are working on that.
Sure. Yeah. Doom running in the MacBook Pro Touch Bar.
On the Touch Bar.
So, look, you could in software emulation run in a complete Amiga, which back in the day was like this multitasking marvel of the future. Things are emulated all the time. We emulate ARM devices and iOS devices on modern PCs and Macs. Because you're a developer, and that's how you can run your app on, in software on your screen. This type of work happens all the time. I mean, it's just a matter of, can the underlying platform be powerful enough to handle it? Yeah. If you were gonna, I don't remember the memory types anymore, but if a standard Mac had like 4 gigabytes of RAM and you were going to run a virtual machine, you might have wanted 8 gigs of RAM because you needed more space and so forth. And so maybe we do that with phones.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was thinking, I mean, this is a scary concept for Intel.
Yeah. Well, Intel faces the same extinction moment that Microsoft
Absolutely,
does, right?
because as far as Intel's development goes of their chipsets, it's kind of slowed down. As far as faster, smaller, more more efficient chipsets that they're producing, it's kind of slowed down over the last couple of years. They're working at it. It's getting smaller. I get it, but when you talk about performance, an i7 2100 from 2011 compared to the latest i7 Skylake, you're not seeing this tremendous performance increase.
Yeah, not day to day. Yeah, and think about Microsoft's kind of fate in this future. We look at Microsoft today and we think, okay, they don't really have a big push with consumers. They're getting pushed out of the personal computing market because of mobile devices. oh, what's going to happen to this company? Well, what's going to happen to this company is they're going to become a cloud computing vendor, and they're going to be a big one. Like, there's no doubt this is going to be a hugely successful company going forward. Well, Intel's future could be the same thing, right? Today, we all think of Intel as the company that makes the chips that go inside of our computers. They're not really anymore, right? Because ARM chips are the ones that go inside the computers that people actually use, phones and tablets. But there are data centers out there that power all these cloud computing services that everyone needs on all those mobile devices, and that could be a future for them if they don't get screwed out of that as well, right? So you mentioned this early on, they've never really done a good job of matching performance to power management, and that kind of stuff, frankly, is important.
Yeah.
In data centers as well.
Absolutely.
For slightly different reasons, but same underlying theory. So, we'll see. I can't, I'm not going to mourn the loss of Intel per se. I mean, they either make it or they don't.
I think you made the point that some of these Snapdragon, some of these ARM-based chipsets are running at the same performance as a i3.
Yeah, and I said that because I was told that by HP and by other companies.
Which it's true. I mean, there are.
At the time, back in February when the Snapdragon 820 was a new thing, and today we have the 821, and soon we'll have the 830, whatever. They said this thing is, on various benchmarks, is as powerful, as performant as a. My phone is ringing, Andrew.
You want to go answer it?
As an Intel, I do. I'm going to take this, Andrew.
Go ahead. Take it. Take it. While Paul does that, and we'll get back to the conversation, let's talk about our other sponsor, and they've been here for a long time, and you've heard me talk about it, and that's Braintree. BraintreePayments.com/whatthetech. Simple, secure payments and code you can integrate quickly. To learn more, go to BraintreePayments.com/whatthetech. I've been talking about Braintree for a long time, and a lot of you guys that are watching this right now have actually signed up with Braintree, have been using Braintree in your mobile payment systems. If you accept mobile payment, if you're an app developer, if you are developing an app for your business, you have to check out Braintree. They make it super easy to accept nearly every type of payment method out there, whether it's Android Pay, Apple Pay, Bitcoin, all major credit cards, PayPal, everything. Essentially, all the payment methods that you want, it's all there, and it's super easy to accept more when more comes down the line. Every month you hear about a new payment method being accepted. Everybody's working on it. Samsung is working on something. HTC is working on something. So when these services become popular and you want to accept it, guess what? It's just a couple lines of code you just pop in there, and it makes it very easy to keep up with the times. Also, it's a token-based payment platform. So your credit card information isn't being dumped in someone's computer and is vulnerable, essentially, to hackers. Secure payments, made simple. I absolutely love these guys. BraintreePayments.com/whatthetech. Sign up. Go check them out. It's a great company. And by the way, I don't normally do this, okay? But one of our other advertisers that we just spoke about is using Braintree. They accept Braintree payments, which is perfect. BraintreePayments.com/whatthetech. I want to thank Braintree for supporting the show. They're a PayPal company. Let's see. Paul Thurrott, are you back?
I am.
I was not ready for that live read, and I did not have my copy in front of me. I did that all from up here.
It seemed like you did a great job.
Thank you. I pat myself on the back. That it's the first time I've done a live read without even having the copy. I felt comfortable. I didn't have my blanket to keep me safe here. No, I think this is a very interesting conversation to have. I think the fact that these chips are getting so much faster.
I could picture this not happening, though, right?
I could.
Why did we spend so much time on this? But
no. Yeah, I picture it happening. I don't picture it. Yeah. I think the more likely scenario is that it could be an utter disaster. And it would just not work the way that we think it's going to work. By the way, talking about disasters, last week I got so much, as they call in the wrestling business, heat. People were really mad at me last week when I was on with Brad because I made a joke about AMD. And we were talking about the chipsets. We were talking about Intel and almost very similar conversation to this. And I said, the best use case for AMD, and they're not even aware of this, or they might be, they need to forget about manufacturing chipsets for computers. They need to start getting into the portable heater business.
Oh, jeez.
And just take...
I think I've identified the problem, Andrew.
Yeah. Just build yourself, they can start selling these little AMD machines, running the AMDs that exist now. You just pop it in, put it by your feet, and you could heat up the entire room.
Mhm.
These things are the best portable heaters you could find.
Sure.
People lost their minds. People got so mad at me for saying that.
I think you and I have had this discussion that you can pick any technology on Earth, Nintendo, the Amiga, whatever it is, and there are people out there who feel very passionate about it, and there are people on the hardware front who build their own PCs or whatever and feel very strongly that they prefer AMD. I mean, sometimes depending on the time frame, it could be technological, but I think a lot of times it's like psychological. They just prefer the underdog.
Listen, I loved AMD. I was a huge AMD supporter. Almost every one of my machines that I built were AMD. Until
my very first PC that I built was an AMD, because they were just less expensive back then.
They were great. They're still less expensive. They're coming up with a new chip, and apparently this thing is going to kick butt. The initial,
they always are.
I know. The initial one is that this is like half the price of an i7, the top i7, and it's just as fast, maybe even faster. But we don't know. There's no, real world case studies of this, so we have no idea. Paul, I want to ask you, I did not get a chance to talk to you about this. And by the way, guys, I love it when you email me because you remind me things to bring up to Paul. So if there are topics that I kind of miss or you want me to talk about, email me. guysfromqueens@gmail.com. Just give me an idea for a topic if there's something that you wanted to hear us talk about. A lot of people ask me about Windows 10, Windows 10 VR headset, and what we know about what these things are going to look like, what the specs are going to be. And I saw that you had an article on Thurrott.com, so I wanted to bring this up. We never spoke about this, and I'm actually surprised that we totally did not talk about it.
Right. We still don't know a lot about it, right? I mean, Microsoft has, vaguely stated that all of its major PC maker partners are going to manufacture these things. They'll come in at various price points. The cheapest will be $300. The least expensive versions of this thing will require fairly low-end computers. In other words, not a $1,500 computer, but say a $500 computer. Mm-hmm. And the notion here is we're going to do to the VR market what they did to the PC market, which is just provide you with a lot of choice, a range of functionality, and a range of prices, right? And you can get the netbook version of VR, or you can get the Surface Book version of VR, and everything in between. And if you think about where VR is today, we really do have that kind of scalability, but it goes across different platforms. And so, Google Cardboard in the very low end, $20 basically. Google Daydream, it requires certain phones, but it's not super expensive, less than $100. I think it's $80, less than $100, certainly. There's the PlayStation VR solution, which is, I want to say $300, but it requires a PlayStation. So it's still under $1,000. That's supposed to be pretty great. And then all the way up to Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, and there are a few other solutions somewhere in there. And I think that the Microsoft stuff is probably going to be somewhere in the middle, and it's going to range. It's not going to be like a line in the middle. It's going to be like a kind of a big segment in the middle. And I think we're going to see different capabilities. And aside from the central awesomeness of democratizing VR, I think the central, well, maybe there'll be two, but let's say the central advantage of this platform is going to be that it doesn't require like cameras all around the room like you see in the really high-end VR solutions, that they're going to be able to do positional tracking using just the headset. And so that's kind of a big leap forward there. And it's simpler for the user, right? You just have a headset. You don't have to worry about junk all over the place.
So how does this, where does HoloLens play in all of this?
Well, I mean, first of all, HoloLens is never going to be a commercial, I should say a consumer product. It's technically a commercial product. Today, HoloLens is just for vertical markets, very specific use cases, custom tailored applications. This comparison won't mean a lot to people because I don't think a lot of people who listen to this maybe even know about this stuff. But 10 years ago-ish, Microsoft had something called Windows Data Center, which still exists. But back in that day, you couldn't just buy Data Center, that version of Windows Server. You had to get it from a PC maker, well, from a server maker. They would come to your business in person, and they would help you set it up. It was a real specific solution. Yeah. And HoloLens is like that. It's not, yes, you can go to the Microsoft store and spend $3,000, but then you get this thing that doesn't really do much. The way customers really buy these things, that's for developers, right? The way the customers are going to use it in the real world buy it is they buy it from a Microsoft partner. and the partner provides the software, in some cases the services that run on top of that thing, and they custom tailor it to that customer's needs. It's a very, it's a hand-holding kind of a thing. But the underlying technology is being added to Windows, and that's Windows holographic, right? And VR is the basis of it, but then the hologram stuff is is the second of the two advantages this platform has.
Which is the augmented reality aspect of it.
It's the mixture of virtual reality with augmented reality, create, mixed reality. The question I have is whether the lowest end versions of these Windows holographic headsets will have those holographic capabilities. I mean, the name kind of suggests that they might.
So Microsoft released, I guess, the minimum requirements. For to run, in the VR experience, and it's pretty low: 4 gigs of RAM, USB 3, graphics card that supports DirectX 12, and a 4 CPU cores.
But the minimum requirements for Windows 10 are really low too. And if you had a PC that had those minimum specs, you would have a perfectly horrible experience.
By the way, very low specs on this laptop right
but
here.
It's very low, but it's not it's not the low as it could go. And that's why I think this VR market that Microsoft is creating, or this mixed reality market that Microsoft's creating, is going to be a range of experiences, a range of choices, a range of prices. And you're going to have a better experience if you can spend more. But if you can't, you'll at least be able to get something, right? We talked about this, I think it's right here. This it came apart, but the virtual reality headset that goes with the Alcatel Idol 4S, right? I mean, this looks like any other VR headset. It's fine. The software for it is not great, right? The resolution isn't very good, but it's fine. It's comfortable, whatever. But it's runs on Windows. This is probably a good example of something that could be sold, with the holographic features for $300. And it's not going to be awesome, but it's going to be better than nothing. And it's neat that people who can't afford an Oculus Rift, let alone handle the complexity of all the stuff you have to do to make something like that work.
So do we have a pricing? I mean, do we know? No. Because I know that the rumor is that it's starting at $299.
No, it's not a rumor. Microsoft said this.
Oh, Microsoft did say this. Okay. Yeah. Starting at $299, but what does that mean? What are you getting?
That's what I mean. I think it means this. You're going to get the cheap thing. This is $299. I mean, and I don't think it's just. I think there are going to be optional controllers. I think you're going to be able to use an Xbox controller, of course, because it's Windows. There's going to be other stuff going on, but it's a more sophisticated platform. So there's going to be more going on in that thing than there is in this little piece of junk. Because this thing probably cost the company $19 or something. I think we were in, actually it might have been Amsterdam. We saw, VR, a basic VR headset. It was in a store window. I should have taken a picture of it. I think it was $9.99. I mean, that was euros, but you could just buy it off the street.
Wow.
And I think that's what this thing is, right? It's just a cheap,
Yeah, I mean, you could get on Amazon. There's tons of these cheap ones, and they don't really do the job. That's not super clear, but. Sure. I had that Samsung one, the Samsung VR. Mm-hmm. I actually returned it. I bought it around this time last year. And,
right.
It was the first Samsung one that had that, and I didn't get the big deal. It didn't work right. It looked crappy. The focus was off, and the phone would overheat in the thing. Like after about 15 minutes, you had about 15 to 20 minutes of using it, and then it would overheat. Obviously, these are things that you're going to grow out of the more advanced these devices get. I'm really interested in the augmented reality stuff more than the VR stuff, to be honest. I don't know if VR will be the future of gaming, but I think augmented reality will definitely play a major, major part in the future of these consoles.
Right. I mean, I'm interested in both. I think the broad availability of virtual reality just by itself is going to be kind of a big deal. I think a lot of people poo-poo VR. They think it's kind of a passing fad and whatever, but it's sort of like touch screens on computers. People don't think they want it or need it.
Yeah,
I think when people experience this, I think it's going to be pretty positive.
Listen, I think this is just one step closer to being wired into the Matrix.
Exactly.
We're all going to be living in tenements, these dumpy apartments, but we're going to think we're living in some beautiful Las Vegas hotel.
Yep.
Everybody's going to be beautiful.
Did you see the Windows Weekly we did last week?
No, I missed last week's. No, I haven't seen it.
You should watch it. we went to this company called Wortel outside of Amsterdam, and we were going to talk to the guy about HoloLens. And so he wanted us to put on the headset and kind of experience some of the apps they were creating. And I said, Mary Jo went first. And of course, because now I'm not wearing it, I'm looking, he has it on the screen. You can see it on the screen. And I said, hold on a second. If you can output what she's seeing to the screen, that means we can output this thing to Skype. We got to put the HoloLens thing on this podcast instead of you talking about it. And that kind of changed the tenor of the show dramatically. It was really very, very interesting. And so inside of their office building, they have holograms around the office that you can't see unless you're wearing the HoloLens. And so we had Mary Jo put on the headset again since she was used to using it, and interacted with some of the custom apps that they've created, some of which are just, fanciful like blocks you play with, and some of which they're right next to Schiphol Airport, and it's real-time traffic monitoring of all the flights going in and out of the airport. Wow. You can see the planes in the air as they're flying into the airport, which you can also see on the little the hologram of the airport.
Oh, holy crap. I'm watching this right now.
Yeah.
Oh, it was man, this is really awesome.
Yeah, it was really awesome. So, you could, given what we do, talking over Skype or whatever, it's hard not to imagine doing like virtual worlds versions of this stuff where we're interacting with holograms and displaying that instead of me and my disastrous.
Instead of doing this, you would just be here. I would just go to like a couch shot. Like I could go to a shot like this, and you're there.
Exactly. I'm right there.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yep.
I find this technology really, really interesting. I think think about it in the business sense, like for meetings. Everybody's in their location. They just put on this HoloLens, and now all of a sudden they're sitting in Midtown Manhattan.
I just happened to watch the Minority Report, which it's funny. So many people hold the Minority Report up as some futuristic wonder where they've envisioned the future correctly. But I see all these goofy things in it that are so old-fashioned, like, did you get the data for the whatever? And he's like, yeah, and he pulls out this piece of glass, and then he moves it over to another machine, and he plugs it in. And I'm thinking, like, why would you have to plug in something physical? Like, you would be able to whip it around the internet very easily. But there's a scene where basically, I don't know if they're judges or whatever, but two judges kind of come in virtually to look at the evidence of a crime that's going to happen in the future. And it's exactly what you're describing. It's basically a virtual meeting. And we could all be in some virtual meeting space. I could be sitting like I am now, and to them, it looks like I'm sitting in some chair that's in this virtual space, even though I'm here. And as I kind of move around, they would see me as I really am, which would be horrible for everybody. But it's that science fiction Isaac Asimov future we've always dreamed about.
And we're not talking something that's 30 years away. We're talking something that's, a handful of years away from happening.
We're right on the cusp.
It's amazing.
Of it,
It's amazing. It's really cool stuff. I have to watch this now. I did not know you guys did that.
Yeah, it was
this is
amazing.
One of the few weeks that I've missed the show.
No, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that, I looked at the laptop and I said, oh, God, this is going to change the show dramatically.
That's crazy that they were able to output that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The Skype. That's really,
in fact,
really
cool. That caused some scrambling because we were kind of on the edge of what we could do as it was. And he basically said, if we do this, we're going to have to cut off the video for the audience or whatever. And I'm like, then cut off the video for the audience. This is more important. We were able to actually figure it out. I think we ended up we were going to use a single mic, and we ended up using our own,
That's
headsets
awesome.
and stuff. Yeah,
very cool.
It was great.
So Paul, let's, I want to talk about two more things here, and I'm going to make it quick. First, I want to talk about this laptop that I have here that everybody's been asking me, Andrew, when are you doing this full review? And I didn't want to do a full review immediately because I actually wanted to use this thing consistently for a while. And I used it for a little over a month, and the whole concept...
How was the Delovo?
The Delovo. It's actually called the VOYO VBook 3.
Yeah.
It's the VOYO VBook 3. And
the Dell Yoga 3.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here. The VOYO VBook 3 Ultrabook. So before I show you guys how this works, it's running a Cherry Trail Z8300. It's running Intel HD Graphics Generation 8 Intel graphics, so whatever that on that Cherry Trail chipset it is.
Cherry Trail is the equivalent of what? Skylake? Or is it the previous?
No, it's the previous. I think
previous,
it's
okay.
yeah. I believe so. Okay. Yeah, it's not Skylake. There was what is it? Cherry Trail, and there's another one. I can't remember. Bay Trail. It's a 1.4 gigahertz quad core chip in here. 4
Yep.
gigs of RAM, 64 gig hard drive. Which it's 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 not an SSD, obviously. What is it?
Tell me the processor name again.
Cherry Trail Z8300.
8300.
Yeah.
Okay, actually.
8300.
Okay, so that launched in the last year. Okay, yep.
Yeah, has 802.11n BGNN, has Bluetooth, has 10-point IPS display, 13.3-inch screen, 1920 by 1080 FHD, dual cameras. Obviously, it has an SD slot, micro SD slot, USB, and everything else that's standard. 10,000 milliamp battery. So the interesting thing about this is that it's like 200 and something bucks. I've seen it for like as cheap as $230. I may have seen it for cheaper than that, actually. I can't remember, but the listing is like $260. It's fascinating because I normally don't like using the lower end PCs because of the performance on them. Obviously, you're not going to get the best performance, and I was really concerned with how it's going to function when I'm touching the screen. And I'm just going around. I have to tell you, they've really improved on the quality of these machines over the last couple of years for these lower end machines. So, I mean, it's quite. If I could click on this, it's quite. I mean, the touch screen is really it works perfectly fine. It works just as good as any other touch screen on any other device that I've used. Really, it's not really a slowed down version of Windows. You obviously you start encountering the problems when you're playing video heavy content. It plays HD content, no problem, easily. The keyboard is fine. The touchpad on this thing is way better than I thought it would be. Now I got to reset. Look at this. We have to reset. No, you don't, Windows. But I was really surprised, and I brought it to you, Paul, and you were actually surprised by the quality of this thing for 200 something bucks.
Yeah, I mean, the keyboard and the trackpad seemed like you would get from a major PC maker. It's funny. It's like they're sourcing it all from the same place. And then
most likely is,
the rubbery kind of feel of the case to me was very reminiscent of what you get on a Yoga device from Lenovo today. And obviously it shares a visual design kind of similarity. What's that little advertisement you just got for Edge there?
Did I?
Yeah, look at it down there.
What does it say? Have you customized Microsoft Edge? Get away from me. It's a convertible, so it works in all these different ways to do it. The only issue that I've seen, and this is inherent of the chipset on all these lower end machines, is that the Wi-Fi is not super fast. You're not going to get 100 megabits a second on this thing.
Right.
You're going to get whenever I did a speed test, I was hitting like 50, 60. So I know that my internet performs better. I just wasn't getting it on this. There were some connectivity issues, but I don't know if that was me and where I was using this. I use it mostly in the bedroom. That was my laptop upstairs. But for 200 and something bucks, I think it's a really interesting market. And the argument here is, should I buy this or should I buy a Chromebook?
Oh, jeez.
Right? Like, if you think about that argument, should I buy this or should I buy a Chromebook? Because that's the price point that we're in. Sub $200, $200 laptop. I would definitely go with a laptop like this over a Chromebook.
Yeah, because, for all the standard reasons, right? Everything you can do with the Chromebook is there. You can put Chrome on it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting device. For people who are interested in this, I'll post a link as to more information about it, how to get it. Listen, are you going to be running heavy software on this thing? No, you should not. That's not what it's for. But if you need a secondary laptop, if you're looking to get something inexpensive just to have as a secondary laptop or as your main laptop, if some people like a desktop, and this is just good enough. This is perfectly fine for everything that you need to do. I did all my emails on this thing. I did all my word processing. I did Skype. It wasn't great, obviously, the webcam on this thing. You're not going to get a 1080p webcam. It's a 2 megapixel front and back camera on this. But it was perfectly fine for what I needed to do. My biggest issue was the speakers, to be honest. I didn't think the speakers are great.
Yeah.
More than anything else. It's a very interesting concept, and I think there's other manufacturers obviously that do this, but this one, the build quality was great, and it's a legit copy of Windows. I know people are going to ask me if it is. I ran a software that kind kind of tells you it's a full-fledged version of Windows. It's not a pirated.
I had gotten a Chinese, I call it a Woku, but a whatever mini PC, like a media PC, and it had like a pirated Windows key on it.
That's amazing. How did you find out? How did you find out?
I think the antivirus software found it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty responsive. It's pretty quick to launch all these apps, It's the first time I'm ever launching this, too.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the overall. I wanted to use this thing. It has Bluetooth. I don't know if it has Bluetooth on it.
Sure.
People are asking me now. Andrew complained about Wi-Fi, which isn't very good. No Bluetooth audio either. It says it has Bluetooth. I didn't really use the Bluetooth. It says Bluetooth, yes. I don't know if that's
Bluetooth, yes.
Yeah, maybe no Bluetooth audio. Yeah, right. But I mean, for $200, not bad, not bad at all.
Yep. Yeah.
Paul, are you
get something like that?
Yeah.
For $200.
Are you buying anything for Black Friday? Have you seen any deals?
So.
I feel like this is the first. First of all, this is the first year that we didn't do like a Black Friday thing.
Yeah, I'm a little. I'm getting a little consumered out. I mean, I feel like we've reached a point with phones, especially. Well, not especially. We've reached a point with phones. I think that's kind of a new thing. With tablets in a way, and certainly with PCs, where the stuff we have is great, and when you go to something new, it's a little better. I'm a little less inclined to trigger buy something these days, maybe than I was in the past. But
how many TVs do we need?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had nothing. I can't find anything really that really stands out to me because I don't know if I feel like Black Friday was every year it just gets less and less important because these deals are happening more and more. These brick and mortar stores are not where we're going. For
half of the Black Friday sales are not unique to that day and are not especially good deals. And I don't know. I mean, if I could find it, I wouldn't actually buy this right now. But one thing I'd like to think about buying in the near future would be a 4K display for my computer.
Okay.
Right? You can buy 4K TVs pretty cheap. Even 55-inch TVs, right? I don't need a 55-inch display for my computer. I need like a 27-inch display, maybe 30 inches.
Yeah.
And those aren't super easy to find, and they're not cheap.
It's great.
But I'm not going to buy one this weekend. I can tell you that.
I'm looking at let's say Target for example. There's a what is it? Hisense? Is that the name? Hisense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's a Hisense 4K with HDR, 50-inch for $399.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
Nuts, right?
If you have an Xbox One S or any other device that there's a Roku will do HDR as well, 4K. I mean, that's an incredible experience.
Super thin. It's gotten so cheap because these products are disposable now. The TV market's
everything we own is disposable, Andrew.
Yeah, I know, but it's look at this. A Hisense 40-inch 1080p TV, $120 at Walmart.
Yeah.
On Black Friday.
Yep.
It's
incredible.
It is incredible, and I was talking to one of my friends because he's buying this. He wanted to buy like this crazy expensive Sony 4K TV, and I asked. I was thinking about it. What do you benefit from? Let's say you get the HDR. It has HDR. It has everything that the Vizio does, but it's, let's say, $800 more, $1,000 more. Where is the benefit to spending that money? Before, you would spend more money and you would get a much better product. That's how it always was. But I feel like with televisions,
some of that's still around. I mean, when I bought we got a TV for the podcast we're doing at work, and it was so incredible. I've been wanting to get a 4K something, for some time, and I said to my wife, we have to get this, for ourselves. And you can buy TV. It's not super expensive. I mean, for this kind of thing, it's like $1,200. Like if you go to Costco, you could find like an $800 4K HDR TV, and you're talking now about a $500 one or whatever. But if you see them side by side, you can see the quality difference. And so there still is a difference in quality
Yeah,
to the
I mean, on the
picture,
lower
but
end, yes, absolutely, right? You're always going to have
You
that
have to-
quality
you have to-
comparing the lower end and the high end. But if you're in the thousands already, is there that much
Right.
of a difference between the $1,200 one and the $2,200 TV? I
No,
don't.
I mean,
yeah,
I think the days of someone going into a Best Buy or wherever they might go and going back to the home theater section and getting, what was the high-end Sony brand they used to always have?
Bravia.
Yeah, Bravia.
Bravia.
You know, and spending $1,000 extra for a Bravia, I think those days are over. And it's for the reason you just said. These TVs are disposable. You can get, a Hisense, which is a high quality Chinese brand, or a Vizio.
Is it a high quality brand?
No, there's no such thing. But it doesn't matter because they're cheap. And
but is Vizio a high quality? I mean, I would consider some of the Vizios a high quality brand now.
They make decent stuff. I mean, my wife and I went through a series of, not many. I mean, we probably had 3 different espresso machines, right? And we didn't buy high end ones. You can spend thousands of dollars on an espresso machine. We spent a couple $100. We found one that cost less than $100. And we kind of did the math on it. We said, well, if this thing lasts like half a year,
you made your money.
We win. I mean, we've already spent less on it than we did on the other ones. We could just buy the same one again. We've had it for over a year now, right?
Yeah.
And we've had to replace little baskets and things, or little parts you have to get and stuff. We've cleaned it a few times because these things do run into problems. But that's the world we live in now. We did the same thing with frying pans. I just commented to my wife that her parents probably still have the cast iron pan that they got when they were married in the 1960s. We had a set of pans that we used for many, many years. We just replaced them because the nonstick surface is gone, meaning I guess that I ate it.
You ate it, yeah.
Like in other words, we ingested it. Yeah. And we just bought this new set, and I said, I bet this thing lasts a year or two at best, I
have to tell you.
Because that's how things go. That's the world
that frying pan discussion, I just went through this also. We got a set when we were married, right? When we got married. Right. Somebody sent us this very expensive kitchen set.
Sure.
And we used that thing we destroyed the entire thing, right? We didn't take care of any. We were 20-something-year-olds, playing house, essentially. And we just replaced it with, a cheaper one. And I look, we go, why spend the money? The thing's going to get filthy. You're going to use this thing until you no longer need it. It's going to get scratched immediately. Even though it's non-scratch, it's non-scratch, it's scratch resistant. You're going to scratch this thing immediately. I'd rather spend a couple $100, get something, and then I get another one in a couple of years. I don't know. What am I, nuts? It's crazy. By the way, I'm a big fan of Vizio. Don't get me wrong. I think Vizio, I don't want to get the emails. I actually think Vizio was better than Samsung in some scenarios. And the thing that Vizio does now is that the more that they've been selling and the more popular they've gotten, they've added more lines to the Vizio line. There's the D, the E, the P, and the M. So the more lines you go, it has more LEDs in the back. It's backlit more. So I think it's like compared to 24. It's like 60. I think that's how it works.
Andrew.
Yes.
I have to go.
Oh yeah, you do have to go. It's 3 o'clock. Oh crap.
I apologize.
Sorry. All right. No. I totally forgot. All right, guys. That's it for this week. Everybody, Thurrott.com. Go sign up for the premium service. Only $64 for the year. You get access to all this stuff that Paul's doing. Plus, First Ring Daily. Him and Brad host the podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Thurrott. You can follow me at Andrew Zarian. Paul, you have to go to a meeting now.
Yes, I do.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving.
My first of 2 more that I have today. Yeah,
Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.